but tortilla was better.
Tortilla.
I was foreign speaker. You know why? Because I made up the contention. Because some of us didn't want to be first speaker.
I would have cried again, okay? I would have been like, please drop me again for the resolution.
Okay, you guys won 3 rounds and me and Carolyn won 2. We don't even know how we won the last one.
Were you guys placed
Alright, guys,
as
let's go.
88th and 87th speaker?
don't
That was
even
really sad. I was like, oh.
Wait, I don't even know.
We were last speakers in the
Just
entire
go.
debate.
You know what?
Seed 23rd.
On the other hand, it was varsity and novice, so.
Yeah. It's only your second tournament after all.
We were 23rd.
I didn't see
That's all that
I didn't
matters.
see Carolyn on the list though.
No,
Seriously?
Yeah, maybe.
Did she just not make
Oh
it
my
to
God,
the
just
list?
go.
Let's go.
Okay.
What? I don't have it.
So,
Oh.
Can you feel me?
are
How
my
come you
opponents ready?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
All
Is,
ready.
is the judge ready?
Yes.
Is
No.
the partner ready?
Yes,
Stop
we are.
being
So,
ready.
I would like to begin by placing a warm purple blanket of thanks over everyone here in this debate for a judge for taking time out of her day to judge. This is an off time.
Oh wait, one question.
Oh my god.
Yes,
No. Like,
They're
so
judging.
would you do this? Because a lot of people we debated at Prospect did we'd like to thank everyone.
Oh yeah.
It's just like a polite thing.
But
I mean,
They
it
made
gets
it
a little
so-
tedious if everyone
Yeah,
does
especially
it.
Yeah.
every speech.
But if you're
the
the first speaker,
that's okay.
So,
third
I'd like to thank my opponents for making this an educational debate. I'd like to thank my partner for being here and supporting me in this debate. Thus, time starts now. I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the USA Patriot Act. So, as a brief roadmap, I'm going to be first going over definitions, then the criterion we set today for our debate, and then the plan. Then I'll be going over our two independent contentions. So, for the definitions, the USFG is obviously the U.S. federal government. The USA Patriot Act is the uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools required to intercept and obstruct terrorism act of 2001, with the purpose of deterring and punishing terrorist acts in the United States and around the world as well. So, our plan is our criterion we set today is that of net benefits, which is basically the greatest good overall. So our plan we set for today is basically the resolution, which is the actors, U.S. federal government. The time frame is ASAP or as soon as possible. Funding none required. But if it is required, if our opponents bring up that it's required, then we will use normal wages and means. Our plan text is that the U.S. federal government will renew the USA Patriot Act. So, for contentions, our first contention is that of the fact that the Patriot Act has actually been proven to be good for combating terrorism and has been proven to be effective throughout the history of it being approved and utilized. So, according to Asia to Pacific Economics, the Patriot Act resulted in nearly 400 convictions of terrorist-related crimes since the year it was renewed. So what this means is that it has prevented about 400 potential terrorist attacks that may have killed several people, may have killed families, may have killed the breadwinners for these families, thus putting these families in poverty. So so this act clearly saves lives.
When was it renewed?
Renewed. It was approved, I believe, sometime after 9/11 in 2001. In order to prevent terrorist crimes. So since 2001 to now, it has resulted in nearly 400 convictions of terrorist-related crimes. This includes bombings, this includes shootings, this includes, basically encompasses all terrorist actions that may have killed families, as I've stated, killed the breadwinners of the families, thus leaving families in poverty and possibly basically just being an overall detrimental effect towards the citizens of the United States, which the U.S. federal government is supposed to protect. So here's another piece of evidence that before 9/11, it was difficult for authorities to monitor quote-unquote lone wolves with murky ties to terrorist groups because they didn't have the liberty to basically use wiretaps and to listen on conversations or get evidence or information. So the FBI suspected that Zacharias Moussaoui was a terrorist, but they didn't have enough evidence to connect him to Al-Qaeda, so they couldn't have the authority to search his apartment. So this man was this man actually was a terrorist, and he ended up killing several people. And so, due to the fact that the FBI didn't have the liberty to or the evidence to connect him to Al Qaeda, they couldn't really do anything to him. And instead, they just basically he was basically allowed to run free and commit acts of terrorism and ending up killing several people. So that's why the Patriot Act was made, so that the United States can use the appropriate tools and the tools necessary to prevent acts of terrorism that could potentially harm our own citizens or actually harm other countries as well. Because by capturing these terrorists, we can ensure that they don't actually go out to other countries, or they are basically free to go out to other countries and do more harm there if we don't catch them. So, in fact, the USA Patriot Act has been approved twice by Congress. So obviously, it wouldn't be approved if it wasn't effective in the first place. So considering that it has stopped nearly 400 terrorist attacks and saved several lives and was approved twice by Congress, we can clearly see that the United States of America Patriot Act is very effective. So our second contention is that it actually provides support for the victims. So, according to Asia to Pacific Economics, the Patriot Act issues new funding or issues funding for families or victims of terrorist attacks. So, it basically provides support for the people who are affected by these terrorist attacks. So, not only does it help prevent it, but also helps these families recover from traumatic events and help them financially as well. So, for these reasons, that saves lives and that it actually supports the victims financially, I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the act of the USA Patriot Act. Thank you. Oh, dang it. I thought I ran out of time when I heard that.
I know, it's mine's pretty too.
My flow is always looking like that.
Okay, girl, go.
Pass or no? Legibility. Is everybody ready?
Yes.
Great. First of all, I'd like to give an off-time thank you to my judge and my judge for judging us, our opponents for being here and making this an educational debate, and my partner for supporting me and this is literally what other people said. My partner for supporting me and being there for us as we continue this. You know what? Time starts now. As the first speaker of the negation team, I strongly negate the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the USA Patriot Act. So first, as a brief roadmap, I'll be going over the affirmations team's case before moving on to our case. So their first contention was how it was proven, how the Patriot Act was proven to be effective, and how 400 terrorists were found because of this. But however, they said that this was since 2001, and my partner and I would like to bring up that it took 14 years for them under this Patriot Act to find 400 terrorists. 14 years to find 400 people that have killed. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't wait against her. Okay. Never mind. Gonna moving on. Okay, so they said that the terrorists they used as I'll take your question later if I have time. Thank you. They said that the FBI found without the USA Patriot Act, it was hard for the FBI and the government to monitor and find lone wolves. And they talked about a man whose name I couldn't pronounce, and the affirmation team was also unable to pronounce, so I'm just gonna call him Joe. So they the FBI suspected Joe was a terrorist, and however, because they did not have the USA Patriot Act, they had no rights to search the apartment. Therefore, he was able to kill people and run free. However, I'd like to bring up that we also have police forces and other means to catch him because he's actually killing people, and killing people is against the law. So yeah. And they also stated how this was approved twice by Congress. This bill was passed by George. I'll take your question later.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was passed by George W. Bush, and though it was George W. Bush who was the president at the time, and though he was the president, and because he brought this up, because he was the one who brought this up, that doesn't mean that doesn't make it a good thing, okay? Because there have been many incidences where Congress has proved itself to be quite corrupt. That being said, we can't. I'll take your question later if I have time. Thank you. we can't weigh the benefits of the USA Patriot Act based on the fact that it was approved twice by Congress. Okay. They also talked about in their second contention of how it funds victims. They did not specify where this money came from. Yes.
It's just clarification. It comes from the government.
Okay, thank you. All right, comes from the government. Answered our question. Okay. Yeah, I know. Okay. Moving on to our own contentions. Our first contention is that the USA Patriot Act violates the Constitution. So basically, it violates the First Amendment to the First Amendment, which is that the U.S. Constitution prohibits. I can't read this. Okay. It prohibits the making of any law respecting an establishment of religion, abridging the freedom of speech, infringing on the freedom of press, and also the Fourth Amendment, which prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures, requires warrants to be judicially sanctioned. So basically, the USA Patriot Act, though it may be considered a good thing on the outside, on the inside, people or the people in charge of it have really just been abusing it. So basically, according to a statistic from CNN.com, a person who donates $100 to a charity to help the needy can lead to being questioned simply because the charity was a Muslim-run charity. And also, the FBI conducted nearly 500,000 interviews of Muslim and Arab males from 2001 through 2005. Not a single one, I repeat, not a single one of these interviews led to information that would have allowed the government to detect or prevent 9/11 attacks. And this was during 2001 through 2005. And also, this refutes this refutes how they stated that 400 terrorists were found in 14 years, because within 6, because it means they've accused a lot more than they've actually convicted. And this is unfair. This is racism. This is directly against the Constitution. This is against what our country is for. What people have spent years and years fighting for these rights. And moving on to our second contention. How it gives us leading up. Okay. And that leads us to our second contention of how it gives the U.S. a bad reputation. So, for young people in college and universities, especially those who are Middle Eastern or Muslim, have the fear of government surveillance under the law. This has changed international intellectual exchange and alienated many foreign students from going to U.S. campuses, meaning they'll stay in their countries and not go to the U.S. looking for better, brighter futures. And this is, it is bad for our image because countries will see how we continue to allow this instead of protected time, instead of ending, to allow this, meaning that they have no trust. So other people would be discouraged to come to the U.S. because they feel like the government wouldn't trust them. Without trust, they're more likely to cause the terrorist acts we are trying to catch because of their anger for this. And for these reasons, I strongly urge a negative action.
Just take it.
Okay. Thank you. You should be flowing.
Oh, I basically kind of did, like, I have all the stuff that she's gonna say. Because I'm telepathic.
Okay, before Lily starts blaring anymore. Alright. As a member of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the USFG should renew the USA Patriot Act. As a brief roadmap, I'm going to be addressing the affirmative team's case first, then move on to address the negation team's case. Alright, so our first contention is about how the USA Patriot Act has proven to be effective in combating terrorism. Now, we said that there have been 400 convictions of terrorist-related crimes since then. Now, all the negation team said to this was that it took 14 years to catch 400 suspects, and this doesn't weigh against our contentions. 400 is more than zero. Undoubtedly, by making these convictions, these 400 convictions, there have been countless lives saved. So, by renewing the USA Patriot Act, we can continue to convict terrorist suspects and continue to save lives. Now, moving on, so we also mentioned an example of Zacharias Massaoui, okay, who was a lone wolf terrorist that the FBI couldn't investigate at the time because they had no authority. Now, the negation speaker mentioned that we have police forces and other means can find them because he's killing people, and killing people is against the law. Now, the point of this was that the FBI could have stopped Massaoui before he started killing people. Now, yes, we do have other ways to find him, but the police would only get involved after he started murdering people, after these terrorist attacks. So with the Patriot Act, the FBI could go in beforehand and prevent this terrorist act from even happening. So moving on to address our second contention, which is that it provides support for victims of terrorist acts. And my partner mentioned how victims of terrorist acts are given money, they're provided compensation. Now, all the negation speaker mentioned to us was that it doesn't actually. That it doesn't specify, that we didn't specify where the money came from, and so my partner clarified that it's the government. So basically, the negation team has dropped our second contention in today's round, and Judge, you can flow that through. All right, so I'll just restate our contention again. So our second contention, support for victims. So the Patriot Act issued new funding for families of victims of terrorist attacks. Now, by renewing this act, we can continue to compensate the victims of those acts. So moving on to address the negation team's case. So their first contention is that it violates the Constitution. And so they mentioned how, this violates the First Amendment and this violates the Fourth Amendment. Okay, great. So according to the New York Times, agents can't eavesdrop unless they get a judge's permission. They must demonstrate that the suspect is a terrorist. Now, before 9/11, they must demonstrate that the suspect is a terrorist. So basically, they have to ask a judge, they have to go to a judge and prove the link that the suspect has to a terrorist group. And they must actually notify the judge when they actually tap this phone. So they're actually not violating the Fourth Amendment because they do have a court. That doesn't hurt. Okay, so we can see here that we're not actually violating the Fourth Amendment. Now they actually either way, they actually haven't explained how this actually violates the First Amendment at all. They simply said, oh, this violates the First Amendment. And then moving on to address another part of that contention, they mentioned that the FBI has interviewed 500 people, 500 Arabic and Muslim people from 2001 to 2005. They haven't stated the actual purpose of these interviews, how the statistic is actually relevant to today's debate. Yes, okay, so moving on to address the second contention, which is that the U.S. gets a bad reputation, and which they said that Muslims in college are alienated and foreign students don't want to come to America and people are discouraged from coming to America. All right, so the tagline of that contention, the U.S. gets a bad reputation. Well, not renewing the Patriot Act doesn't mean that suddenly this reputation that they talk about is not still going to be there. No, we don't need that. 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 Okay.
Just
We don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it.
the
Exigent
word.
circumstances.
Okay, good.
Okay. No. Okay. So. Okay. Not renewing the Patriot Act doesn't mean that bad reputation for the U.S. is still there. Now, their second part of that contention is that people are discouraged from coming to the U.S. That's clearly not true. We still have this influx of immigrants. We still have problems with our immigration system, which indicate that people are still interested in coming to America, despite the fact that the negation team says, no, everyone's discouraged. They don't want to come to the United States. In addition, so back to the tagline, U.S. gets a bad reputation. Yes.
I said specifically. I didn't say all foreign students. Are you aware that I didn't say all foreign students?
No.
I stated.
No, I was not. All right, so moving on to address the tagline once again. So,
I was talking about Middle East.
So, they haven't actually proven any impacts as to how the U.S. gets as to the U.S. getting a bad reputation here. So, if we weigh that against the affirmative team's impacts today, so one, proven to be effective in combating terrorism, which essentially saves lives, which is essentially good. And once again, it provides support for terrorist victims so that they can, as my partner mentioned, so that they can move on to their lives and continue to have productive lives, which supports today's criterion of net benefits. And for these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution that the USFG should renew the USA Patriot Act. Thank you.
Well, Daenerys, the saving lives is essentially good.
I know that.
Like,
Sad Muslim children. Sad Muslim children in a Shutterstock image. Start by thanking the judge for me.
no, we're done with thank yous.
Should I start with this or this?
Start with ours. Because ours
Case?
No, yeah, I was just like, I understand it, but I was like,
I strongly, as a member of the negation team, I strongly negate the resolution that the USFG should renew the USA Patriot Act. In this speech, I'll be going over the affirmative team's case and then the negation team's. The affirmative team's first contention was that the Patriot Act has been proven to be good for terrorism, and how effective, and how there were many convictions since it was last renewed, and we said how they only caught 400 people in the span of 14 years, and they refuted this by saying how 400 is greater than 0. But we would like to tie this back to our second contention of how this act gives the United States a bad reputation. And I will summarize this right now, but go back to it later. But basically, with this bad reputation, especially with the Middle East, it will actually cause the acts and the things people are being caught for. Yes. Can you clarify what you just said? Yeah, I'll go over this in my second contention. Their second contention was and they also talked about a man who was a terrorist who couldn't get caught, and they said the FBI could have stopped him before he started killing and prevented this. But I will also be going this in my second contention, which I should be doing. Our first contention was that it violates the Constitution. The affirmative team refuted this by saying how they can't eavesdrop unless they know the suspect is a terrorist, and how we didn't link this to the act. So I would like to clarify how the First Amendment prohibits freedom of speech. It prohibits laws respecting freedom of speech. It essentially provides the right for freedom of speech. Okay. So because this act eavesdrops on people and infringes on their right to say whatever they want without being caught. Because it infringes on people's freedom of speech, even those who may not be doing bad things or caught. What am I saying? Stop. You can do it. Yes.
Okay, are you aware that I addressed this in my speech, saying that it actually doesn't, that it's not just simply eavesdropping without any barriers like you're claiming. There's actually a process that they have to go through in court before they can eavesdrop.
But when people are donating money to charities, and then getting questioned just because of that.
What is relevant to the eavesdropping thing?
Because they're eavesdropping on the donations that are happening.
Okay.
And people can't even donate money to those. Yes.
Wait, are you aware that the process includes proving, getting permission from a judge and proving, or basically convincing the judge, giving them evidence as to how the suspect is potentially a terrorist?
So people are using this law to waste time and effort because people simply just want to donate money. But they can't do it because of this law. It makes the process very long and hard because people are questioned just because they want to donate money for those in need. And that prevents,
No.
And so our second contention was that this act gives the United States a bad reputation, and when I'm talking about this, I will go over both of their contentions. So to clarify, this contention was about how young people in colleges and universities fear that government surveillance under the law has chilled international intellectual exchange and alienated many foreign students seeking to study. Yes.
Wait, did you just say chilled?
It has made it more tense. Okay. So according to New York Times, Muslim student organizations are now widely shunned. And part of that is because of this act that targets, basically victimizes those who are Muslim. Because they are now being more shunned, and they don't want to come to the United States to study anymore, and that's bad. And because they're getting shunned, they will become less willing to come to they like the United States less because everyone there shuns them. So if they're stuck in their own countries and can't get the education they want from the United States that we claim that they can receive without being shunned and dehumanized. That is very bad for our image. As countries will see, because this is really bad.
No.
Because instead of ending this act in June as the status quo permits it, countries will see how we continue to allow this type of surveillance that causes this discrimination, and it breaks the trust between United States and this is hard for these reasons, and because of that, it will break the trust, and without this trust that we claim to provide, those people in the Middle East who they say are finish. It's been like 7. Just finish. Just like I strongly negate. I strongly negate.
Yeah, that's the part.
I need to work on everything.
It's okay.
Don't hurt yourself, Claire.
What tag do I get again?
Don't worry.
I'm gonna. Well, brace yourselves. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm serious. Okay. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, and let me restart that real quick. Okay. A wise man once said, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions," and we can see in this debate that the road to hell is clearly the USA Patriot Act. With that being said, I strongly negate the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the USA Patriot Act. So basically, being that this is the final speech, I will be going over voter issues, which is why we have clearly won this debate. So, we talked. Okay, so basically this. Our first voter issue is of the criterion, which is of net benefits. So the negation team clearly adheres better to the criterion of net benefits because we because we not only what are we doing? Okay. We're ending this act, so basically we are encouraging more students, like my partner stated in her second speech, we're allowing more young people and students to come to immigrate to America. This also was, okay, yeah. We're allowing more students, especially those of the Middle Eastern and Muslim belief or descent, to immigrate to America, and this will show, and this shows a lot of things. At first, it shows that it shows the Muslim people or the Middle Eastern people that by going to the U.S. they won't be considered terrorists, which is good. It means that they can come and get a better education and therefore benefit the global community with their strong education, because that they now know how to solve issues in the real world in a better way because of their education, and this will slowly remove our bad reputation. Also, when the people in Middle Eastern countries will see how successful these people were when they immigrated to the United States, they'll also see that the United States isn't all that bad. Yeah, and since we are on very tense relations with the Middle East currently, so we not only benefit the Middle Easterns, we also benefit the current people who want to education. We also benefit the current people living in America. So basically, donating there was an incident in which a person donated $100 to a charity and then was led to questioning because that the charity that the person donated money to was a Muslim-run charity. So if we eliminate the USA Patriot Act, these people can continue feeling they would feel less restricted to send money to charities that are that are Muslim, run by Muslims, or are sent to Middle Eastern countries, and that will benefit the people, the target population that the charity is going through. So that's another benefit. Yeah. So moving on to running out of time. Okay. Second voter issue of dropped points. So basically, the affirmation team dropped our point about how the USA Patriot Act basically goes against what we fought for in this country. Shut up. Sorry. Okay. Racism. So basically questioning a bunch of people that are Muslim, even if they had no incentive. I can't refute your point, but I would refute it anyway. Yeah, it's being racist because they're basically, it's being racist and also discriminating against people who believe in a certain religion. Violates the Constitution. Bad. Vote for us. Wait.
Can you address their
Okay.
dropped point
No.
issue?
Yeah, of course.
No, because wait, I didn't bring it up, but it was okay. It was
Okay.
it kind of
Remind me if I forget.
No, just the first thing to do.
Okay. Are my opponents ready?
Yes.
Yes, they are ready.
Okay, is the judge ready? Is my partner ready?
Yeah.
Okay, thus we begin. I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the USA Patriot Act. So in this speech, I'll be going over voter issues, which are reasons why you, judge, should give an affirmative ballot for this debate. So I'd like to first go over the issue of dropped points. So throughout this, our opponents seem to bring up in their voter issue speech that we dropped a point about racism. However, my partner had actually clearly refuted this by saying that there's actually regulations and rules and a whole entire process as to who will actually be basically quote unquote eavesdropped on. So according to the New York Times, agents can't eavesdrop unless they get a judge's permission. They must demonstrate that the suspect is a terrorist. And this is also in the Patriot Act in section 215 on page 25. So obviously from this evidence, we can clearly see that we are not questioning random people who are giving to charities. With this Patriot Act, which has a whole entire process as to who will be eavesdropped upon, we can see that racism still, their point about us dropping their point of racism still does not stand. Because my partner had stated all of that, and she also stated that getting rid of this act won't suddenly get rid of our bad reputation. So apparently, our opponent seems to think that this act is basically the root of all the causes of racism, which it is not. And they also
said it was.
just keep going. You don't have to listen to her.
Okay.
Baby steps. I said baby steps.
And in fact, the negation team is a little hypocritical in their drop points
Go to
point
your voter
because
Go to your
they
voter
dropped
issue.
our second, or they dropped the refutation to our second contention, or yeah. Okay,
They dropped
so
the second contention entirely.
yes, they did drop the second contention entirely. So the negation team didn't provide clear-cut impacts such as saving lives. They didn't even mention net benefits at all. So we'd like to state how our contentions relates to net benefits because we are saving lives and actually adhering to the Constitution, contrary to what the negation team believes. Because my partner had stated in her speech she stated the words exigent circumstances. So exigent circumstance. She did. So she stated the words exigent circumstances, which is actually under the 4th Amendment, which states that whenever someone's life is in danger, it's justified to actually search someone for something like that could potentially harm other people. So technically, the USA Patriot Act is constitutional, it's effective, and it saves lives. And it's not the root cause of racism, obviously. So this is how we adhere to net benefits in this debate. Plus, the Patriot Act not only saves lives and combats terrorism, but it also issues new funding for families or victims of terrorist attacks. So obviously, we can see how this benefits all the citizens of the United States, both in saving their lives in financial things, and as well as adhering to the Constitution. So let's take a step back and look at a two-world comparison. So let's look at the negation team's points and what they brought up about the USA Patriot Act being quote-unquote bad. So the first contention is that it violates the Constitution. We completely, about their first contention that it violates the Constitution, we completely refuted this by stating all the regulations and the process that goes into actually like setting these wiretaps and actually justifying these actions. And also, their second contention was about how it gives the U.S. a bad reputation. But as I have said, the USA Patriot Act is not the root cause of racism, and it actually saves lives instead. So thus, all their contentions are refuted, and they do not stand in this debate. So their argument is basically consists of nothing, because we had refuted all of their points, and we actually provide more clear impacts in this debate. So let's look at the affirmative team side by implementing this USA Patriot Act. It's effective, as I've said. Oh, okay. So saves lives. Okay, saves lives. It's not the root cause of racism, and we're still adhering to the Constitution. Neg, almost nothing, because we refuted all of their points, and they actually dropped one of our points. So for these reasons, I strongly affirm the resolution that the U.S. federal government should renew the USA Patriot Act. Thank you.
So I have a question. Yes. How do you refute their things without generalizing Muslims as terrorists?
We will get to that. First, we are having a questioning period of things that you guys perhaps should have said. It will be very fun.
Wait, can we close the laptop?
Oh, yeah.
It's
I have my mom's gonna be here in 10 minutes. So
You will go first.
cool.